on.
Get here.
Yeah, so the thing about the AI generated music is that it's AI generated. So once I stop the song and press play again, it'll be totally different. But I'm going to go ahead and fade that out because this is a new episode of the Lightning Strikes podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joe Herzog, coming at you from Cincinnati, Ohio. With me, as always, is Joe Schultes. How's it going, Joe?
Good. Coming live from Albany, New York. That was terrible.
It's okay. The joys of live broadcasting. And also from the Buckeye State, we've got Jace Kraft Miller up north. How's it going, Jace?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Cold. A little cold.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in a new streaming environment, but it's not fully complete, hence my badly blurred virtual background. So just pardon that in the meantime. We have a lot to talk about tonight, and we actually have, this is going to be one of our relatively quicker episodes. We've got about an hour to work with, and most importantly, we're going to dive right in to the much anticipated Race Across America that was uploaded by Kyle Connor. So for those of you that aren't familiar, he is an EV charging YouTuber, enthusiast, automotive YouTuber. And we've been talking about this series because he was kind of live tweeting it as it was happening, but keeping things pretty veiled as to the results. So, Joe, you got to watch it, right?
Yes.
At least part one. Okay, Jace, you got to watch it?
Yep, I did.
Okay. So I got to watch it this week as well. Oh, wait, let me get my little... I really leaned into the tech this week, guys. So hold on. I want to get our ticker going so that as people tune in, they know what we're going to talk about. So the Race Across America. Feel free to chime in. I'm just going to start with my synopsis. We've got 4 electric trucks that Kyle is going to push 2,200 miles across the country, starting in Eastern Florida and ending in San Diego, California.
Yep.
So, Jace, give us a rundown on the 4 trucks that we're going to see throughout this series.
Yeah. So we have the Silverado work truck. I think is the W3.
I think it was
W3. And then 180 kilowatt hour battery basically on that guy. We've got the Lariat extended range Lightning, 131 kilowatt hour usable. And then oh my gosh, why am I blanking out? The Rivian, thank you. Rivian R1T, which was, I think they were doing a quad motor, right?
Yep.
So not quite as efficient. What is that? That's a little bit higher than Lightning, I think, or right around the same.
It was 140, I think they said, or 129. I think it was just below.
Okay, just below the Lightning,
yeah.
And then we have, of course, the Cybertruck, which I believe is Kyle's Cyber Beast, right? So
it is.
It's like 124 kilowatt hour battery. So it's a super cool lineup. I mean, who else is doing stuff like this? Like nobody.
I wanted to do this. I would have loved to do this.
It's just so cool. Like it's so neat. I love it.
Well, and one of the weird curveballs of behind the scenes that I kind of pieced together from Twitter is that they needed a Rivian last minute. And so my understanding is that the Rivian owner in the video, the person driving the Rivian, is just someone who was local that was willing to help out and do this crazy thing on a moment's notice. So that did get me thinking, like, oh man, if only he was in Ohio and needed a standard range Lightning, I would have abandoned my life for a week to do this.
That would have been kind of cool, actually, though, to see even like dual motor Rivian and then standard range Lightning. I think that would have been kind of cool.
Well, they did mention that they were only doing conserve mode on the Rivian, so they're only using 2 of them, and they disconnect.
That is very true. Yeah, that's very true.
I think it's fairly even, but.
And Cybertruck kind of similar to those, 2 motors. I believe both of them can actually turn off. 3 tri-motor setups. So I think both of those in the rear end of the Cybertruck can turn off, and it can just run off of, sort of similar to the Rivian, which is nice. I wish we had that ability, or something similar in the Lightning.
Yeah, and so this is going to be a multi-part series from Kyle. Yeah. And obviously, I will admit that I'm viewing it through a biased lens. I want to see the Lightning perform well against its competitors. I believe they're driving a Lariat Lightning, and I believe it's I think they own this one, or they purchased it out of spec.
No, it's Ford.
This one's from Ford. Yeah, it's just
really?
a press one with a tonneau cover.
This is the one Kyle picked up in Jersey when we got the adapters. He's had that since then.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. So it is Blue Cruise equipped.
Yes. 1.0, same as all Lightnings.
And basically, in part one, we basically are just trekking our way across Florida.
And it's a tight race, too.
At the end of part one. And so the impression I'm getting, and how I'm viewing the rest of this, is that it looks like, it's funny, if you listen to the dialogue in each car, there are moments where they're convinced they're going to win easily, and then moments they're convinced that they've won one bad shot.
I kind of felt like it was the same on the trip to Florida. It's like, close. At one point, each party thinks they're going to win, and I thought it's super fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there are obvious pros and cons. So the Cybertruck will be moving across the USA using exclusively the supercharging network.
Yep.
However, the Lightning has a unique little advantage because at the time of filming, it was the only vehicle. I mean, I guess the Cybertruck could also use EA stations, but that is the only vehicle in this competition that will be.
They actually said they can't use the EA stations for the Cybertruck because there's no adapter that'll fit into that weird charge point that they have. So
they're have to rip that, like fender off, basically.
But I did see a picture that Kyle tweeted with the fender off. So who knows if that is.
He's done that before.
He tried it before, but I don't think it worked. And then he did it again recently, but I don't think that was during the race. I think that was after the race. But they did try it again. I think it was successful, if I'm not mistaken. I think they got it actually charging finally.
So Cybertruck's only going to use superchargers. Lightning is the only vehicle in the competition that's able to use both because they had an adapter. They're using EA stations as well, whatever's available. And then Rivian and Silverado are exclusively using CCS. But the Silverado significantly easily the biggest battery of the four trucks, right?
Yep.
And so I think in that whole first episode, they only stopped to charge like once, maybe?
I think once or twice in that first episode. Yeah, it was
it was when they kicked the Mustang Mach-E out.
It was clear
was awesome.
Very early on how much these guys want to win because Kyle Connor's basically jumping out of the Cybertruck before it stops moving at each stop. Originally, he's like,
dude, I thought he didn't put it in park for a couple times. I was getting worried.
Well, but then it seems like, not that I'm going to ever own a Cybertruck, but it seems like one of the things they stumbled across with that is that they were actually plugging it in too quickly after the vehicle had stopped and it was delaying their charge. But I will admit that I feel like a novice when it comes to public charging when I watch videos like this, because they're talking about the ideal battery percentage to pull in at. I mean, I don't live my life racing across the country against other trucks. So I think those seconds or minutes matter less to us. But I mean, are you guys actually looking at your battery? I mean, I just want to get to the next stop with and charge and then move on to point B. But like, are you guys conditioning to the point where you try to pull in less than 20%?
No, what I've said kind of is, in my opinion, at least in the Midwest, like where we live, Joe and Joe, you as well. I mean, both of you guys really, in my opinion, charging infrastructure is going to, affect your trip more than anything else. You're going to find you don't have enough chargers to say, oh, this one's, 8 EAs and this one's, 8, Tesla charge. We have to find one. Hopefully they're all working, and it's there's just not enough choices yet. It's getting better. It's better than it was even 6 months ago. But I don't have enough. I've got like 1 or 2 stations to choose from. Usually, especially driving in northern Michigan, it's one. And we're using that station. We might have a second or third choice, but it might be a 50 kilowatt or a 62 kilowatt. So it's nothing. The 150 to 200 kilowatt chargers, those are the ones that I'm going to choose, and there's only one choice. So,
yeah, the kilowatt rate for me is what I would look at the most. Like if I plug in and I'm crapping at 35 kilowatts the whole time, and the charger's just not giving me what I need, I'm moving. Either to a different stall or trying to hop to another station to actually not lose all that time, because that's a ton of time when the chargers are derated. That's really the only thing I really pay attention to. Hopefully once we get these adapters, this will be a chat of the past, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. But
yeah, one thing that jumped out at me immediately, and I texted each of you, is this magical app that one of the guys in the Lightning is using. I don't think at any point in the video they say, like, here's this app you might not have seen before. It just kind of pops up and they're magically getting all this charging information about the vehicle. And so I reached out to you guys about, like, what is this app? How do I get it? Because it's giving a lot of real-time information. It's just presenting more info, and it's presenting it differently than the Ford Pass app. So are you familiar with this app? It's called Car Scanner.
Yes. Yeah, I've used it for a while. Actually, on my old ICE cars too, my Focus too. It's a popular thing that people use. You can find codes and all sorts of fun stuff with it too. With the OBD. I mean, it's more involved than just what we're using it for. But for EVs, it's even more unique, right? Because we can get like real-time battery information, and then unfortunately in Lightning, in Ford's case, like information that like we would like to be able to see on the instrument cluster, right? So
it's the nerd info that I really want.
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that is requested. Ford knows these things, right? Like they are working on them. So but these with Car Scanner and the OBD, it really does give us information that we can that we want and that we don't otherwise easily have. So, Tesla superchargers, for instance, they don't have, a screen like EA does either. So we only have Ford Pass app currently. I've seen some people do some cool, like a better route planner stuff with an OBD, and like you can get that to show up on CarPlay, and that's pretty cool too. But
really?
we need it, right there. But you can see your state of, charge and your health, your charging speed. I mean, there's a lot that you can see. So I would definitely do it. I think I sent you what I bought, Joe. So definitely.
Yeah. And we all bought it, I think, immediately when you sent it to us.
Yeah. Just buy it. Yeah.
Oh, you already got yours.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. It's cool. It's really, really neat. I've appreciated, and liked having it. So.
Yeah. Did you tweet about like your battery health? Like, was that from the Car Scanner app?
Yeah. Yep. So there's like, I think 13 or like 17 pages of data available, something like that, like that you can scroll through. There's all sorts of, things even that go like above my head and beyond my knowledge level. But there's basically like two screens, seemingly, in my opinion, that you'll want to use. The one is like the first one that pulls up. And then there's like a red one, and that one is more focused on like health. And that sort of stuff. And so, I've tweeted about both of those when I bought it a few months back, and it was because it was like, it blew my mind. I was like, this is so cool to have this information. So, But do I use it? I will, to answer your question though, to go back to the road tripping stuff. Do I use it on a daily basis, or on a road trip thing? I just, to be honest, I don't. Lightning is just it's so consistent. The charge stops don't really vary that much. It just, if you get a nice station, everything pretty much, nothing really changes. You go right up to 160 usually, and it stays about to there, sometimes a little higher. And I don't know.
Yeah. So to your point, if you're not in a race across the country, like those little things, I just drove across Ohio for a wedding this past weekend, and on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, I plugged into the EA charger, and I just didn't think about it. And that was the beauty of it, is that once I plugged it in and saw that my kilowatts were up above 100, I'm like, this is what I'm here for.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And a plug and charge. I mean, if you use plug and charge, I usually do, just because we don't go on enough road trips to really make it worth it. I mean, I know with Easy, it's like one stop, technically it's worth it, but I just don't always think about, let me do the subscription and again this month. And, I just don't always go through I love plug and charge. I don't know. I just love, there's something about plugging.
It's an awesome feature. I definitely agree. The ease of just plugging in and walking away and going to get myself a Whopper, like Mr. Dave from Out of Spec.
Yeah.
I want a crown. I want to start driving around with a crown on.
That almost could become a meme within the Lightning community. The Burger King crown as you're driving down the street. Only the real ones will know about that.
That's true.
And so I have to, just as a reality check, we kind of talked about the vehicles that are participating in this series. You can see everybody driving seems committed to, like, they're doing their best, 10 over the speed limit. But I do think the Lightning's in a bit of an uphill battle here, only because of the charging speeds. It's going to get 150 no matter where it stops. I guess I'll just ask you, we're only through part 1. Where do you think the Lightning finishes in this race? I know, too early to say, but it's just like picking the winner for the Super Bowl. Like,
no, I agree with you. I think it's limited, of course, by its charge speeds, right? It is the slowest charger of the bunch when you consider peak speeds only. We're not really diving fully into the curve there, which, there's a lot of meat and potatoes in there, right? Like there's stuff there that could be talked about, but it can also use Tesla superchargers, which in this race could mean the difference between, making it to a charger and not. I don't know. I there's a lot that remains to be seen. I do think that is an advantage, but yes, obviously we do know that as far as, peak speeds, it is the lowest of the 4.
I'll just pull something out of a hat and say, I say it finishes second. I mean, it's hard to guess, but to your point, you reminded me, it is the most consistent charger of the bunch, in that Kyle has praised its charging curve on numerous occasions, how long it can stay close to its advertised charge speed versus the other vehicles that peak and then fall off.
Dave made a great point. He's, I think he kind of put it in perspective. I believe it's Jordan that's with them as well, and Andreas. Yep. So he was like, well, he owns a Model Y. He's like, well, Model Y peak, it's at 50%. I think state of charge, he said it's at 104 kilowatts, where we're very accustomed to being much higher than that at a 50% state of charge, right? So, to that kind of, and it even put it in perspective again for me when I was watching. I was like, oh yeah, he's right. Like, it's really not. It holds it very long, although it's not impressive with the peak speeds, right? But it really does hold it longer than I think people give it credit for, if that makes sense, which is Tom Malogny's been fan number 1 of the, he's just like, rah, rah, like it charges great, and he makes great points. But, if you could combine the flat curve of the Lightning at 200 kilowatt, you're starting to really talk about a nice, performing road tripper truck, which I don't know if you guys saw the E-Transit, but Ford recently just updated the E-Transit with a peak speed of 180 kilowatts. So,
whoa, no.
Yes,
nice.
That's public info that is out there and about there. So, I hope we see. I mean, we haven't really seen the final specs for the 24 Lightning yet. I don't know if there's going to be any improvements, but we'll see kind of what happens. But I was impressed that E-Transit, I think, got a bigger battery and a peak speed of 180. So that's nice to see.
Moving on.
Yeah. And hard to know how many parts of this series remain. They didn't even make it out of Florida in part 1.
They said 3 parts, I think, total.
3 total, yeah.
That astounds me that they're going to cover the rest of that journey. That is not a route I'm familiar with, so this is all going to be news to me.
Yeah, me neither.
I say all 3 of us go down and just jump on I-10 and let's rock and roll.
Let's do it.
I think we could do our own version of this series, guys, because we've got different trucks. I'll represent the standard range folks, but then we also have different approaches to how we road trip, which I think is really interesting within this group.
True.
How we plan, how we charge, when we stop, do we trust the truck? But that's one of the things that I like. Kyle's all about, I'm going to leave the nitty gritty in this video. And that's one of the things I noticed is each car has their own strategy and approach, and even within the Lightning,
I was going to say, and within each car, almost you have different strategies. I mean, I know that Lightning has a little bit of a different charge strategy than the other 3 vehicles, but I mean, it's interesting. Like it's even within the car, it's different.
Well, and they had a special shout out This reminded me of like the Avengers, but of EV charging YouTube, because out of nowhere we get a cameo from the one and only Tom Malogny on the phone, who's given the lightning.
Giving Dave crap.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, given some insider behind the scenes info of how what his advice would be. Do you guys remember that? Because I almost had to go back and watch it twice because they were arguing over, or I should say, they were discussing such minutia of public charging.
Yep.
So do you guys remember this moment? Can you help me flesh out what was going on here?
It's basically what we were just talking about. Do you charge 80% at every time, and then within that you get a higher. So we've seen this a few times. I've discussed this on Twitter with a few different people too. So when you plug in at a higher state of charge with the Lightning, you get a little bit higher voltage in the pack. What that means is you get a little bit of a quicker charge, right? You would see 170, right, instead of 150 or 145.
Is that the boost that they were referring to?
No, that's totally separate.
It is separate, but you'd get a bigger boost if you plug in at a higher state of charge. So like anything over maybe 12, 10%ish, maybe even a little higher than that, you see a higher or a bigger boost. Not necessarily longer, but just a higher peak. Yes. Yeah. And it's, in my opinion, it's negligible. So I don't believe that it makes sense to, like I said earlier, charging infrastructure plays much bigger of a role, in my opinion, especially living in the Midwest. In California, that's probably totally different. But in the Midwest, chargers play a much bigger role of how much I'm charging to versus can I plug in at this charger at 13% or this charger at 4%? Like, I don't have that ability, really. We're getting close, but I don't currently have that ability. So that was what they were talking about, basically.
Yeah, and then we talked about VPeak, talked about how many more parts there will be in this series. I'm trying to think if anything else jumped out at me during episode 1.
I kind of was initially surprised by the supercharger reliability. Like, that scared me for a hot second. I was like, oh my God, like what's going on here? And I've kind of seen that. And Kyle put out a tweet like maybe a month or two ago about how he had kind of seen more stories about derated stations and stuff. And with the supercharger network specifically. And I think that's going to be natural because we're seeing more fragmentation. Other vehicles are using these stations. We're going to see a little bit of weirdness. They've done some software updates. I think they had to, from what I heard, they had to change out power control modules and things like that. So like things have changed, and maybe we'll see a little bit of some growing pains kind of with that. But I just thought that was interesting. But it seems like 2 of the 3 issues were just that they were plugging in too quickly, but that there was still like maybe 1 or 2 that kind of derated a little bit and still never really hit their full peak. So interesting.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it's important to note that Kyle was giving these chargers like 10 seconds. Like he was in a rush.
Yeah, he really was.
The man literally takes race to a whole new level.
Yeah.
It's almost like unfair because it's like whoever has like Kyle, nobody's going to have that like,
right.
Sense of urgency.
That's a perfect
way. Meanwhile, Lightning team's putting Burger King crowns on.
They're like 10 miles in and they're like, let's open the Cool Ranch Doritos. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah. That was I'm proud to have them representing the Lightning community in this race. So who knows what lies ahead. I saw that they stopped and charged at a Buc-ee's, which I've been to Buc-ee's up here, but I've not seen any EV chargers at Buc-ee's. Like,
it's a pretty big thing.
Are we going to start to see, like, are they exclusively superchargers, or have you also seen other providers there?
Yes, I believe they are primarily superchargers. I swear, like maybe they signed a deal with Mercedes or something too. I could be wrong about that. But
Mercedes was on site with the one on the video as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I think mostly like superchargers, but they do have a few others that they've thrown in. I think the Mercedes is like a new deal that is going to expand as well. But from what I've seen, like the majority have superchargers, but like mostly V3. So I think like, we'd be able to use most of them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I've never been to one. I want to try one so bad. There's a new one in Dayton, and let's do that. Like, Joe, you could drive from Cincinnati Joe, you'd have to drive from New York, so it'd be kind of like a longer one. But
wouldn't be the first time.
You could stay with me, so it'd be fun.
Maybe that's how we celebrate getting the adapters. Is we meet up there and test out the adapters
and have some brisket.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Well, I stopped there with my wife on a recent road trip, and just because I told her like it's an experience, you have to.
Oh,
and
Isaac's here. Cool.
It was I wanted to I'm gonna give a shout out to everybody. Anyways, the most realistic part of that video was when they were trying to get out of Buc-ee's, and I thought to myself, "There's no way they're gonna get out of here in less than 15 minutes." And then it turns out they just let the crossing guards take a picture with the Cybertruck, and then they get priority.
What cracked me up. VIP moment. I can't get over that.
Did you have brisket real quick, Joe, when you were at Buc-ee's though?
I did. It was good. But I didn't get the fresh. You know how sometimes they have some prepped and ready to keep people moving? So I had the ready to go, but it was good.
Jerky? Any jerky?
No, but I have had beaver nuggets, which is like one of their signature crunchy snacks.
Wow.
Yum. That sounds great.
Yeah. So want to give a shout out to everybody that's tuning in. Lori, Marty, Mac, Isaac, thanks for joining us. I saw Chris Bowie up there. Is it Bowie or Bo? There we go. Okay.
Although Bowie sounds very affectionate, so we might stick with that.
We're on a nickname basis, Chris and I.
Yeah.
All right. So another big update in the last week. If you guys don't have anything else to say about Race Across America.
Not yet. Yeah. We'll revisit next week, I think.
Absolutely.
So the Ford Pass app, I don't want to use the wrong terminology. It didn't officially get an update, but there's a beta version. Is that the right way to say it? So
public beta is the way that I would. There's a public beta and then a beta.
Yeah.
An
alpha beta.
yeah, sure.
And I actually
private beta, if you will.
I took some screen grabs of what the new app looks like. So bear with me as I try to queue those up. Let's find a different view, maybe. Here we go. Wow, that worked out nicely. And let me click through these. So, Jace or Joe, I'll just kick it. I'll kick it to Joe first. Joe, you have the beta, right?
I do.
So, I do have your screenshots that you sent me, Jace. It's a little blurry. So this is a screenshot from my truck. But Joe, what jumped out at you when you downloaded the beta? What are some things you like? What are some things you maybe don't like or can't find?
So the graphic interface is completely different. Everything kind of got reorganized into different spots. So I'm still trying to remember where everything is. The old one I can, I had it memorized basically. I've been using it for 2 years, so I had longer than that. The back on the homepage there, you don't have to hold the start button down anymore. It'll all you have to do is just tap it. It automatically starts, which is kind of nice, especially juggling 2 kids. I actually did it today, and I was like, oh, thank God I don't have to hold that button down because I got a car seat in one hand and the other one's running into the road. So, it's the only thing I found that was missing was the Ford trip planner that I used to use, so that I can trust the truck, as I always say. But I mean, I could just do it in the truck. It's nothing, no love lost. I'm sure they're working on it.
So. Well, and I want to dig more into that of when you told me that was a feature, this is 6 months ago. So we're on the old version of the app. I thought to myself that if I was going to use Ford's trip planning service, I would do it on the phone because I want to be prepared. I want to do it the night before or whatever. That way I know that it's there. Yeah, because when wife and I get in the truck at 5 a.m. to leave on our day-long road trip, I know that I don't want to see her tap her foot while I punch in the 12 destinations that we need or whatever, or put it in, punch in where you need to go, let it calculate. So that was one thing I was sad to see go, but are we sure that it's coming back, or do you think Ford saw that people maybe weren't using the phone version as much? And I don't know. Sometimes Jace has inside info that I'm not going to put him on the spot about, but what are you guys thinking as customers?
I haven't heard anything on Trip Planner. My guess is, if I'm just throwing something out there, I think I can say this without getting in trouble because I really don't know anything. But just if I could guess, my guess is that they are waiting to put Tesla superchargers in said Trip Planner, and that is why it has been delayed. If you want to use the Trip Planner, you can, you're happy. You can more than welcome to use it. But use the other, if you use 4.0 to do that. That's my guess, is that they're working on some some stuff in that thing. On a side note, have you guys seen the ice version? I thought that was very interesting. I saw some people post on the ice F-150 groups. They have a slide to unlock, or slide to power, I should say. It's just like the slide to unlock, basically, but instead of the fan. So it's, they really have, changed it for us EV owners, and I super appreciate that it actually matches what we're doing now.
What we're actually doing, right?
Yeah, we're not remote starting like a.
The only thing now they need to get rid of is the 15-minute or the 30-minute max that you can do.
And that, in my opinion, I've had a few people ask me that question. That's a truck software update that's needed to make that happen. So I do think, hopefully that will come. I mean, unless for some reason there's some hardware, software limitations that are bigger to surmount. But I do think that will happen.
My issue was I accidentally hit that fan button a couple times and locked myself out from starting it up again anymore. It just,
Which brings up an interesting point, because Isaac just said he wishes the Bluetooth controls weren't buried. And I actually disagree with that. The reason why I say that is because I've a couple times actually hit the tailgate button and accidentally, you do have to press and hold, but sometimes that's seemingly where my thumb scrolls. I don't know if it's just like my iPhone 15 or what, but I've actually hit that before and opened the tailgate. So I prefer it buried, and that was actually they talked about that on, I believe, on the EAP forum, that was some of the feedback they found as well, and that's why they decided to bury it. But I mean, it's both ways,
Yeah. One of the things that did move locations, but is still in the app. Yesterday, I was on the phone with Ford customer service about my charging cable, and they asked for my VIN. And I thought the VIN has always been in the app, and I always forget that it is. So I go back to a screenshot or something. And then finally, the first time that I remember, I can just look in the app. I can't find it. And this person's on the phone, and I'm I'm in the app, and I'm clicking seemingly every button. So I'll just save everybody else the trouble. It is under your. Hold on, let me find the screenshot. Wait for it.
Vehicle details.
Vehicle details. Okay. So, warning to everybody watching this stream: some things moved around a little bit. It was definitely more than a facelift.
Yeah.
So trip planner, that's a separate thing that I need to talk about later. Trip planner not in the app for now. Could come back hopefully.
Yeah.
But
I definitely think it will. I
can't imagine they wouldn't bring that back.
But it's a big feature, as far as
it's taxing to build into it.
Yes, exactly. It's a large feature. So I think it'll come, but I think it'll just be a little bit of time.
Yep.
This is what your new energy tab looks like.
Which I love this. Yeah, this is great to be able to slide to. I was going to ask you, Joe, do you charge to 100% every day?
Okay. When I'm at home, but is that once I plug in the VP, whatever you told me to buy, I guess that'll tell me if I have damaged my battery in doing so.
No, so you do charge to 100%.
The manual does say not to charge to 100% unless you need it. I'm just gonna be the nerd there, and I do read the whole thing.
But you leave the house every day, right? So
yes,
you're not letting it sit.
You're not letting it sit at 100, and that's really the key. And Darren Palmer has said publicly, Ford signed off on charging to 100% every day. So
good. That's good to know.
But in the manual, it does say 90%. So.
Don't charge to 100. I'll change that accordingly. But it is
a little
tricky. It's tricky when you then go on a road trip to change your one-time charge limit up to whatever you may need to get to your next stop.
Yeah, now
it used to be, and now it's super easy. Now you just slide that right there.
Mm-hmm.
In the app, yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to do it in my vehicle this past weekend, and it took a few tries. I slid it up to 100.
Save properly, you're saying? Yeah.
I plugged it back in. So that was a little stressful because, again, the archetypal, my wife is like, we got to go to this wedding. Like, time is of the essence here.
Right. You got somewhere to be.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, I swear it'll charge to 100. I just need to press this button one more time, babe. So that was very stressful for me. But
why didn't you use the app? Did you just not want to? Or?
Well, I mean, the screen is right there. We're sitting in the truck, and I'm like, do I want to wait for the app to communicate with the truck, or do I want to take a piece out of this equation and just put it in the screen of the truck?
So I think that's actually pretty good feedback, though, because it's kind of confusing. The edit button being the pencil and stuff, I think it's a little confusing, and and it doesn't save always 100% of the time right away. So you have to do 2 to 3 times sometimes, especially from the truck.
When I first got my truck, I had issues where it wouldn't save, but since I've gotten some updates over the years that I've had it, it's never not saved anymore.
It's very rare for me, but I did notice it when I tried it in the truck specifically the other day.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But in the app, it's usually pretty fast. But every once in a while, I've had some issues, but it is pretty rare for most part.
The source of my stress was that I put into my 12-inch infotainment screen that I wanted a one-time charge limit of 100%, and I slid it all the way over. And once I did that, the infotainment never forgot that that's what I wanted. But communicating it to my digital cluster, that little orange line, that's your charge limit.
Interesting.
That wouldn't move away from 90. I turned the truck on and off a few times. I unplugged and replugged.
Did you do the
reset?
Yeah, that would be a soft reset thing in my.
Yeah, I've had that happen. I've done a soft reset and it works perfectly fine. So you hold the volume down and the next track, the skip track. Hold it for I think it's like 10 seconds.
You'll see screen reboot.
Yeah, your screen will reboot and then it'll update when you do it again.
Okay.
I've had the same issue.
Sometimes with the IPC is a little bit more intense as far as what modules it runs off of. So sometimes with the IPC, you will have to turn the truck off, close the doors, lock, then come back and re-enter, because technically the IPC doesn't reset with the sync reset. But I still think that probably would have solved your issue between the two communicating with each other. But if that didn't solve it, then I would turn the truck off, close the doors, lock it, let it sit for 2 to 3 minutes, and then enter the truck. And then I think it would be solved. Then if not, then it's time to unplug the 12-volt and all that stuff.
I will admit that I would be very nervous to try that reset trick for the first time out and about, because
that one's that one's you can do it while you're driving
while the vehicle is in motion.
Yeah, that's why I say it doesn't touch the instrument cluster, which
it only touches the center screen.
Okay, so it's just
only
an infotainment reset.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, but I think that would have solved your issue between the two communicating with each other.
Whew.
I hope someone screen grabbed Joe's face, by the way. No, that was awesome.
Well, it's burned into the history of the internet, because when this podcast is over, anybody watching, tell your friends. You don't have to watch these live. We love it when you do, but you can always watch these on demand on YouTube whenever you want. So Jace, things that I know you've already touched on a few. I'll just pepper in real quick. I also noticed that all the buttons you don't have to press as long. It feels a lot snappier and more responsive. So shout out to the Ford team on making that feel better for the end user. Jace, any other things that we haven't talked about that you do or don't like?
No, yeah. I mean, I think I'll start from the beginning a little bit. I want to shout out the early access team and the Ford Pass team, and they really put a lot of hard work into listening to customer feedback. That was one of the major things that they really wanted to focus on. They wanted to show that they are, listening and they're actively making changes to the things that people want, and the things that we're requesting, specifically being EV owners. I think that was a huge request, that we have separate apps, that we don't have to use an ICE sort of geared app. We're using an EV app. So I think that was important. I love the changes. It's they're iterating it as we literally speak right now. So they're adding features almost weekly. It's been fun to test it for the last few months and try it out. I mean, I like what they've done. I'm really happy with the work that the team has put in. I can't really say much else of what we already kind of talked about. I like the UI changes a lot. I think that was desperately needed. I did want to bring up one more thing. Sorry, Joe.
Go for it.
The Apple Watch app is greatly improved, which Ford is one of the only ones to have an Apple Watch app, to begin with. So a native Apple Watch app. So it's exciting that they're still like working on that and making it better, because this is awesome. Like this is, you know, better than like 5.0, like almost, in like the way that they enhanced, you know, some of the things here and just the way it looks. I mean, the UI is just
so much easier to use on your watch.
Yeah. And to get charging info, you can get the charge rate, which is like crazy. It'll tell you, you know, when it's going to be like at 100. Yeah. Like it's really, really your range. Yeah. Your state of charge. Like it's really, really cool. So,
yeah. I've got my Apple Watch on right now. Admittedly, I don't use the Forward Pass app very much on there, but I haven't tried it since the beta. So I think I'll have to give it another chance.
Definitely.
I do love, it looks like they've got bigger touch points. Depending on the size of your watch, really doing anything on your watch can be tricky. So, but I mean, who doesn't feel like James Bond when they look at their watch and start their car? That's when I truly felt like I stepped into the future.
I just want, hey Siri, you know, oh, sorry, I just set everybody's stuff off, but you know, hey, you know, or whoever you may have, Alexa, you know, I hope that we can get to that too, because I think that is needed.
Yeah, you wake up and you have your smart assistant, you know, just start your climate.
Do you guys not have your Forward Pass connected to your like Alexa or anything like that? I have mine connected to Alexa.
Yeah, we have HomePods here, so it's a.
I have Amazon devices throughout my house, but I didn't know that this was a thing. But also, I'm gonna stop you and say I don't know that I want it to be a thing. For how often she mishears me, I don't really want to know. No.
So it asks for a password and everything too. So I'll speak up and, you know, tell it. It's sitting next to me, so I don't want to set it off. I'll tell it to start the truck, and it'll. All you have to say is tell Forward Pass to start my vehicle, and it'll ask you for a password. You say the password, and then it'll go, all right, I'm starting the vehicle. Anything else like locking, it'll just do without a password. But unlocking or starting, it'll ask for a password. So
Alexa does have some cool integration.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely useful. Again, my use case is that getting the kids out the door in the morning, getting my son to school. Like I got to pack everybody up. I don't have a hand to pull my phone out. I can just yell at Alexa as I'm walking out the door. Oh, geez, sorry.
I believe you can do some sort of like Siri shortcuts, like somehow, but or Apple short, whatever they call them. But I have not. I haven't investigated.
I haven't tried with that either.
Me neither. But it would be cool to see sometime when I'm bored.
That's interesting. So basically, you're getting a lot of the similar functionality from your home devices that shall remain nameless that you would get from the app. Okay.
Always listening.
So I see in our new beta app that there is a tab for public charging. So I'm just going to guess that's to find a nearby public charger, but not necessarily the full functionality that we were experiencing with Trip Planner.
Correct.
So like they're not stranding you on an island with the new app. You can still find where you need to go.
I believe that is technically basically like Charge Assist, but on your phone.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to think of other exciting things with the app, but how much? So when does this become the official Forward Pass app and no longer beta? We don't know.
We don't know. Yeah. So it was in beta for a while, a private beta to EAP folks, and it was pretty like it started off. I think it was like Mustang Mach-E first. There wasn't, you know, Lightning folks weren't involved quite yet, and then, you know, there was some limits. I think, you know,
when it first got open to Lightning, if you had an ICE car in your account as well, they wouldn't let you start it up. So originally, I wasn't able to jump right in at the.
Which is so fascinating, the, you know, layers that you never really think about, right? Like, like some people have 3 ICE cars and 1 EV, or some people have a hybrid, and, you know, it's just so funny. But so it was pretty limited at first, and then I would say, you know, 3 or 4 months ago, it started, you know, getting bigger and bigger, and then the public beta was released last week, and then got access.
I mean, that just speaks to how many layers this app actually has to it. You know, they're encompassing every single vehicle that they have one by one, and making sure that it works right. I mean, I haven't had a single issue with it since I got it.
And it seems like this one, they really like it's split between, you know, if you have an EV, you have the, you know, I know it is kind of like that now, but even more so.
It's very apparent that they're going out of their way to do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to give Isaac a shout out. He mentioned something that I did see either Jace tweet about or someone tweet about in that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
now, I guess previously, once you got an OTA update, you got the information regarding that for like 3 days and then it went away. And so now that information
Yes.
remains in the app when you want to refer back to it. Am I recapping that correctly, Jace?
Yep. Perfectly correct. Yep. That is, yeah, it would give you basically it would give you the release notes, but it would just say, so software update, was successful and with a green notification, right? And that would last for on average of 3 days. And then I think it's like 72 hours, then it falls off. And it would be specifically in the vehicle alerts tab / section. And that was like really kind of confusing for people. People are like, alert, it kind of sets off your like alarmism.
The first time I saw it, I thought something was wrong with my truck.
Yeah, you're like, tire, it could be any, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, but they've moved that away now from that alert section. And yes, like you said, that last update applies. Some people were like, I don't see that yet. And it's, if you have the public beta, it does not start until you get another OTA while you're on public beta. So that's a little confusing. Since we own 2 trucks, I get 2 chances to be able to go through everything, which it's huge though, because I can kind of like with the refined audio thing, I listened to some music before I, installed it since Justin's truck got it the day before. And so,
all right, so did you hear a difference?
I did. I played the same Justin Bieber album, same Justin Bieber song before and after the update. And I thought it was much better. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Like I said, I have no science to back my stuff up. I should have like recorded it or something, but I tried to record and CarPlay was on, and that's a nightmare.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. Right?
So it's just like, maybe I don't know, but I really did think it. I do think it sounds clear after driving again today. I'm like, I just think it sounds better. I don't know. Maybe it's just it seemed to hint at noise canceling capabilities. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I thought it sounded better.
You've segued us beautifully into our next topic, which is the most recent OTA update that some of us got. We've talked about this before. OTA updates don't happen for everybody at the same time. And so the most recent one that is rolling out to some drivers is an audio tweak improvement. So actually, the note that I have in here, Jace, is to ask you what's your go-to song if you're going to test something like this.
Usually it's not a Justin Bieber song, but I don't know why the Intentions album or whatever that album was called was on my like playing thing. I was like, okay. I was just like, that's a good like bassy like modern album that isn't going to be restricted by like when it was recorded or any thing like that. So I was like, I'll use this and see how it sounded. And I said, I played I think it was Intentions that I played twice. Once before I downloaded it or installed it, I should say, and then after, and it sounded like clear. And I totally agree with what Isaac's saying. Like, I was driving today and I was like, ooh, it makes me like want to listen to music in my truck. Like, not that I didn't want to before, but like, I don't know. There was something about it that I was like, I want to sit in here and like chill and listen to an album now where I didn't before. I don't know. And I could be like so wrong. They could have just not changed it that much at all. But I swear, I don't know. It sounds better.
Yeah, we'll never know. I mean, there always could be a bit of a placebo effect happening, just a little.
I am going to ask. I may find out. I'm going to try. So if we could maybe find out some answers, I'm going to try. I will ask, but no guarantees. But I don't know. It's worth it because I really thought it was a little better.
Well, and I want to give Ford a shout out because that is feedback that they've gotten before, is to share more information with their software updates. And so I looked at your screenshot and I really looked at it with a critical eye of like, are they listening to their customers? Are they giving us that info? Or is it just going to say OTA, sound system or something? And so I think they did a good job of trying to prime their customers on what to expect.
Yeah.
That way we can make informed decisions about whether or not the OTAs were successful. Joe, you said you have not gotten this update yet.
No, so I did get that update. That was actually the first update I got 2 days ago. Just tonight, I feel like the past 3 days I've parked my truck and had a new update. I had the audio one, I had the doors one, and then just tonight I got the driver assistance one, which was like a 50-minute software update. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that does tomorrow morning. But
I did drive. We went to Michigan after receiving the update. I didn't really notice too many differences.
Is it something about you not as aggressive with your eyes coming off the road or whatever?
Yeah, your eyes off warnings. Yeah. I didn't notice too much of a difference myself. Like it wasn't like, it went from 5 seconds to like 6 seconds, or I didn't notice too much of a difference. But I do know that that update was like re-released because the first one I think had some bugs in it. So that one some people did get twice. I know I did. So yeah, but yeah. See what you
I just
think.
wanted to not go off when I'm drinking coffee out of my Yeti for the split second it takes me to drink a coffee.
And sometimes I feel like it goes off quicker if you block that sensor versus when when your eyes are off the road. There's sort of two different, things there. And if you just like even hold your coffee the right way, or some people I know have a phone holder or phone mat they place right over that Blue Cruise sensor that sits right next to the infotainment, and that's like a quick not even like a 5 second, that's like a can't see you at all.
It's so mad at me.
Yeah. So, it's interesting the difference kind of between those two. So,
Joe, are you saying that you don't suck your piping hot coffee through a straw every morning? I just want to clarify. Okay. Might be worth looking into. I mean,
coffee with a straw?
I'm kidding.
Iced coffee, I'm all in. Hot coffee.
Your eyes stay on the road. I'm just saying. I'm all for your safety.
No, see,
that's
here's
why
the thing.
I'm here.
I can still see the road. I forget what the actual thing is, what it's called that your brain actually does. But it takes my peripheral over the cup and puts it together. I can still see the road perfectly. It's just the damn sensor can't see me.
Blue Cruise says otherwise, Joe. So, all right. I just wanted to get your opinion on that OTA. No clue if that's coming to my trim or my hardware. And that's one of those things because we're dealing with apples and oranges and so many different things.
That's a good question, though. I'll be curious to see if that hits the non-BNO systems because that is a great question. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Like I said last time, it's like Christmas morning. You kind of just have to wait for it to sneak up on you.
Yep.
Because if you wake up and you're disappointed every day that you didn't get an OTA, then that's not a way. That's not going to be good for your mental health long term.
The refined audio one was a surprise too. It was a surprise.
The past 3 days have been such a surprise. Now I'm spoiled and I just expect it every day now.
I know you're like sad when one's not there.
Right. Yeah. I want a new truck again.
Yeah. I'm just, Jace is going to kill me for this. We only have 5 minutes, and I know that Jace will only want to talk about this for 2, so this works out nicely. Yes. But I started seeing Twitter ads or something ads. No, I got an email from Rivian that leasing Rivians is now available. I don't know if that was nationwide or just in our area.
I almost tweeted about this myself.
Yeah, and it's just interesting that, I don't know, interesting timing. Obviously, my eye has not strayed from the beautiful white piece of art that's in my garage right now. But yeah, I just wanted to know if I'm sure you guys are on their email list now because of the R2 reservation and whatnot. So it's like $5.99 to lease.
Did you look at the terms?
I didn't. And I've also never leased a car. So this is uncharted territory and I'm not actually considering it. But the number caught my attention. And I think that's what they're going for.
The point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, I looked at it because I was curious. I mean, it's no secret that we're underwater in our Lightnings. We bought them very early on. So, I'm always looking to see just what the best way to get out of that would be. I don't plan on getting rid of my Lightning, but if there were to be a truck that we would get rid of, it would be mine. We would keep Justin's most likely, but I looked just out of sheer curiosity, and I mean the initial number sounds great. I would say the same. I would never suggest leasing a car personally. It just doesn't fit us either, but in the case of EVs, it's a little different where we are right now, right? Like, with the values just tanking on most every EV, I almost wish that we would have, I do wish that we would have leased my standard range. I mean, at the time, the lease deals weren't great, so it it didn't work out, and it probably wouldn't have worked.
Didn't even have a lease option yet.
Exactly. So Ford options was like sort of a thing, apparently, but then it wasn't a thing, and then you could lease without Ford options apparently, but it was like the payment was higher than what we were going to pay to buy. So it's just like it didn't.
They didn't offer me a lease. They said that it was literally that you can only buy it. You can't lease it at all.
Well, but to build on what we're talking about here, like I think EVs getting announced, it has chapters. You get the announcement, you get the reservations, you finally get those orders coming out. I think this signals a new chapter for Rivian, because with the Lightning and with Rivian, when those trucks are first getting produced, they will laugh at you for asking for a lease, because it's like, we have thousands of people waiting to buy these. We have no need to lease.
Right, exactly.
But we've crossed that line now to where production must have caught up a little bit, and they're willing to lease some of these out. So I just think
very well qualified buyers. It was like you could get an even like better R1, T for, it was, 6 something a month, but I think it was like 8,000 down. So yeah, it's in the better deal of the more standard range or base, whatever R1T for, $599 or whatever you said it was, I think it was like 6,500 down. So I just, as soon as I saw those numbers, like, nope, like it just, we personally don't qualify for the 7,500. So, I mean, I guess we do if we lease, so that's a little bit different, but like if we were to buy, we just wouldn't, which I don't know. I mean, even like I said, I mean, I know, 7,500. Yeah. If you do the lease, right. But I don't know. It's a good deal, but that's still a lot.
Well, and it's so hard to even recommend that. Like those two numbers, $7,500 tax credit out of 8,000, you're like, no brainer, let's do it. But like, you can't even know if you'll have a similar incentive when your 3-year lease is up. Like even that landscape is shifting with such regularity that I feel like it would be hard to say like, oh, well, I'll just do that every 3 years or whatever. Like, who knows if you're going to get a deal like that? I don't know.
And like Isaac is saying, it's so true. Rates are just high. Like
rates are ridiculous.
It's just crazy. I mean, it was so easy to be like, oh, 2%. Like, yeah, that sounds great. Like I drove my Mach-E for free for 11 months. I mean, that is just not where we are anymore.
Yeah. Are Lightnings available for lease? I would think we're at that point where they've got enough. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah. Good leases too. I mean, you can.
Yeah. You can steal a Lightning now.
I know. Don't remind me. Oh, yeah. And I, to your point, Jace, hindsight is like, oh, if I just had the patience to wait, like,
dude,
there's a lot of great Lightnings out there right now. Yeah, no way. Clearly I'm not.
It's hard to remember that's literally, we're coming up on, I mean, we've passed 1.5 years of ownership with our Lightnings too, and we were actually a little bit later to where we were actually able to, where our order came in, and so
May was the first one delivered in, Michigan, I think.
Yep.
We've only got like a minute left, so if you have questions, put them in the chat quickly, but we'll start to kind of do our
real quick. I wanted to get to Marty's question. Chris kind of answered it, but yeah, I do believe audio update is probably EAP at the moment. It's hard to tell, to be honest. We don't even know, and sometimes I've seen people that are not in EAP get updates, and so it just really depends.
Yeah, it doesn't differentiate when it comes across whether it's an EAP or it's a normal one for everybody else. So, I mean, it'll come to you eventually.
Yeah, and if we have one that we're not allowed to share, you won't see it, so you won't know anyway. So it's kind of one of those things where it's, if you see it on our social media, we're most likely, hopefully, allowed to share it, and we don't know any further details though as far as it is EAP. I wish we could have had. We sometimes add that so I could tell people, but some EAP people, like we have, like I said, 2 Lightnings, and they're both in EAP, and they got the update 2 different days. So it's just, even with within EAP, there's waves as well. So
I'm always behind Jace, so it's fine.
Oh, not true.
But
you got it before my truck got it.
I do think this is valuable feedback, though, like the ambiguity and shoulder shrug approach that we have to take with these updates. I would hope that maybe for T3, we get closer to that iPhone lifestyle of like, the OTA is going live on April 1st.
And
that's a pipe dream.
Yeah, I agree with that feedback. I really do. I will say it's a bit different with Lightning only because the trim levels are so
right.
You know,
Everyone has a
you're
different
talking,
package.
yeah, and you're talking work truck versus versus. So I
Right.
totally agree, though. I totally agree. But with Tesla, right? Like every Model 3 has pretty much like the same screen, no matter what, it's display that no matter what model you buy, unless it's of course, a different model year. But within that same model year, you're buying the same stuff. With Lightning, as you know, it's very different.
Right.
12-inch versus 15.
And I guess that's why I've given up that crusade for the Lightning, but my hope is that long term they hear this feedback and can build that truck from the ground up with stuff like that in mind.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how you kind of like, how do you want to go after a work trim, because that's going to be like the Silverado, is going to be different than like the RST Silverado, so it's like, it's tough I agree. It's just, yeah, if Tesla doesn't quite do it like Ford does it, right? Like, and Rivian doesn't quite do it like Ford does. And that's from like a fundamental level. So it's going to be interesting. And it brings up fascinating conversation of what Ford will do with T3, because I think they're going to go in that Tesla Rivian level, but I also think Ford has their own lane that is a very lucrative, very smart lane that maybe Tesla and Rivian aren't really privy to. So it's a fascinating conversation. It really will be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. We have got to get out of here quick. But yeah, T3 is a huge conversation for another day. So be sure to subscribe, follow the three of us. Everything, all roads lead to T3. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, or if you're watching on X, be sure to follow all of us on Twitter. That way you don't miss when our next episode is. So it'll probably be next week.
Yeah.
Want to say thanks to everybody that tuned in. Thank you so much for participating and joining us for this conversation. So hopefully, sorry, I got to cue up my AI music. We will see all of you next week. Goodbye,
and part
everybody.
2 of the race.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.